The U.S. economy headed for a calamity, says one individual. The central bank Ponzi scheme must collapse, says a different individual. We are in the craziest monetary and fiscal mix in history. It's so explosive, it defies the imagination, said another individual yet. And what do they all have in common? They are all very successful in the business world. They are all billionaires, and we're going to talk about who they are and what they mean by those very dire and doomish predictions. Hey everybody, JJ, you're watching Bull, Boom, Bear, Bust, and we're back with another dose of economic reality for you. So we continue to monitor this economy that's been pumped up by the central bank, the fiat money pushers. And we know that after the financial crisis in 2008, nothing was fixed, right? The Fed, they ran up enormous balances on their balance sheet to rescue the banking system. We know that they were never able to unwind that to a large degree. I believe they dropped down to about $3.8 trillion, but now they are again increasing their balance sheet, and it's very secretive. And the Fed being a private entity, we don't know exactly what they're doing. They can't be audited. They're not telling us a lot. They're just giving us a lot of general information at these press conferences and at the Fed meeting. So at this point, it is anyone's guess, but that is the nature of the system. We are left to guess while the string pullers do what they're going to do behind the scenes. Ignore the man behind the curtain, or in this case, don't ignore the man behind the curtain. Prepare accordingly, and that's what we try to do on this channel. And why do we need to prepare, and what are we preparing for? Well, we need to prepare for a worst case scenario, and if and when, I shouldn't say if, I should say when the central bank, the Fed, decides to stop propping up the banking system, the entire economy is going to go down with it. And why is that? Because our economy is mostly consumer spending, which is mostly based off of debt. Right, now again, I just want to make it clear, I am not predicting a collapse. I'm not predicting an economic crisis, but I do think that you should prepare. I think that we all need to prepare for what's the worst case scenario. But even if the crisis doesn't evolve out of a monetary situation such as hyperinflation or a crashing of the markets, it could evolve in other ways, such as a grid failure, a massive power outage due to a hack or some other situation where the financial system didn't necessarily crash, but digital transactions were either halted or delayed for either short or long periods of time, either which could cause a lot of distress and danger. Right, just think about what's going to happen to all these people that rely every day on credit cards for everything from food, water, shelter, everything people do, transportation to get to their jobs, to get to the schools, to the doctors, you name it. A lot of things could happen, and the further we get into this hyper bubble, this hyper economic bubble, the more danger lies on the other side of whatever the next turning point is going to be. Now we're in about 12 years of this economic expansions without a pullback, without a recession, without a correction. And just last September, we started seeing the central bank heavy involvement now into the financial system. Now first we have the Guggenheim Partners chief, Scott Minerd, out there. And what he's saying here, he is basically likened inflation of asset prices caused by loose monetary policy and bank stimulus to a, quote, Ponzi scheme that eventually must collapse. Let me repeat that. It's a Ponzi scheme that must collapse. Now, I've called the financial system many different things, and that's one that haven't used too often yet, but I would not disagree with it. It is pretty much a Ponzi scheme. Anytime you have a group of individuals that can create endless amounts of currency and do with it what they want without any repercussions or consequences, then I would call that a Ponzi scheme. And when you look at the amount of debt that has to be created now just to keep the system operational, that fits perfectly with the definition of a Ponzi scheme. Right? You have to keep getting new suckers into a Ponzi scheme at the bottom to keep paying for the looting taking place at the top. Now, I don't know if you want to call it looting what's going on right now at the top, but if you look at the wealth gap, maybe you and many people would describe it as a looting right now of the financial system, where you have the mega rich and you have a continuous decay of the middle class, right? So I would not disagree with Scott Minerd's description here of the financial system as a Ponzi scheme. And again, this was at Davos, and I will quote some other words from this gentleman here. We will reach a tipping point when investors will awake to the rising tide of defaults and downgrades. The timing is hard to predict, but this reminds me a lot of the lead up to the 2001 and 2002 recession. Now we're going to hear from another individual from Guggenheim Partners. First of all, Guggenheim Partners is a global investment and advisory financial services firm that engages in investment banking, asset management, capital market services, and insurance services. And we also have a warning out of Ann Walsh, that's Guggenheim's fixed income chief, and she said in an interview that 15% of the U.S. economy is already in recession. She went on to say also that the Fed's efforts to pump liquidity into the markets has created zombie companies. There's the term we've used before. We have zombie companies, zombie banks that, if left unattended, would not be in existence right now, honestly. She also went on to say the longer that this market runs, the harder the fall will be when it ends, unquote. Next up, we have hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones. He's been involved in the financial world since 1980, so he has some experience, and here's what he has to say. The stock market today is reminiscent of the latter stages of the bull market in 1999 that saw a giant surge that ultimately ended with the popping of the dot-com bubble, unquote. So I agree with them there. We're way beyond the valuations. The ratio from GDP to the stock market has never been higher. This is beyond the 2008 and the 2000 dot-com bubble bust. Mr. Jones continues, quote, we are just again in this craziest monetary and fiscal mix in history. It's so explosive, it defies imagination. And this is, a billionaire who's been in the business for decades saying this. And also, this is his words out of Davos in Switzerland, quote, it reminds me a lot of early 99. The difference is Fed funds were 4.75%. Today it's 1.62%. And back then we had budget surpluses, and today we've got a 5% budget deficit. Crazy times, unquote. And finally, we have Mr. George Soros. What is he saying? Well, this is economic doom coming from George Soros. He has a net worth of about $8 billion. And here's what he has to say, quote, Trump's economic team has managed to overheat an already buoyant economy. And again, this is another warning out of Davos. He continues, quote, the stock market, already celebrating Trump's military success, is breaking out to reach new highs. But an overheated economy can't be kept boiling for too long. If all this had happened closer to the elections, it would have assured his re-election. So he's making it sound like there's no way this could last until the election, which is only about 10 more months. But I have to disagree. Yes, JJ from Bull Boom Bear Bust is disagreeing with a multi-billionaire. I am saying they can keep it propped up. We're going to see who's right. Why? Because it's an unlimited money machine. Any crash or correction or financial crisis that happens is going to happen either one, because they let it happen, or two, because they made it happen. But I don't think they want to have it happen before the election. Just my opinion. And we'll close it out here with a shot of the S&P 500, and we see these previous peaks before recessions hit. 1999, 2000, 2007, 2008, financial crisis, and we are just up in the stratosphere. And of course, we saw it start to drop in 2016. And what happened? Newfound optimism or newfound manipulation, take your pick. But essentially, those previous peaks around 1,500 in the S&P, now beyond 3,000, puts us at a 100% gain. Nobody knows the exact timing of these things. Do they want to continue it forever and totally destroy the currency, destroy the dollar? Well, you tell me, is that their plan? Or are they going to bring it crashing down? That way the billionaires can come in and buy super cheap assets for pennies on the dollar and gain more wealth and control over the financial servants in this world. That is my guess, the second option there. Now, before we wrap this one up, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our viewers, one of our subscribers, who also has a channel, and it's a new channel, and it's called Red Pill Alpha Solutions. I've been listening to this individual. His name is Joshua Paul. And while it's not financially based, the information, it does offer a lot of insight into the current culture that we're living under right now. And it's put out there from a alpha male perspective, so the guys that are watching our channel may find that channel informative, and I think you're going to enjoy it just like I have enjoyed it. And this channel does a good job of cutting through the lies and the propaganda that's fed to us within our culture, especially Hollywood and the media. And again, I think if you enjoy this channel, you enjoy the perspectives put out on that channel. I'm going to put a link down below to that channel. Again, thank you for engaging in the channel, everyone. And those that have channels, I typically don't have time to look at everyone's channels. It would be literally hundreds of different channels I'd be looking at. But I do tend to not talk about too many political things because you have a pretty big left versus right divide when you do that. So some of you out there have also great channels that I haven't really promoted or gave shout outs to, but I've got to stay away from too much political content because it does cause, like I said, a lot of divide. A lot of people down in comments, cursing at each other. The typical left versus right nonsense that I try to stay away from. All right, everybody, hope you're well. Stay safe, stay prepared. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.